the man behind the hustle and grind. This is pride, courage, determination, and perseverance. Welcome to No Luck's Given.
All the things between your business, my business, and how they come together, and the things we go through.
Man, that right there is, we're back. All right. So I got you on the camera now, so that should be good for the stream. The audio will always play, and then I got this camera back running, recording. So I'm gonna double check that.
Okay. Well, let's just get into the conversation today. So we talking about entrepreneurship, and I think that's one of the most important parts. Is entrepreneurship means the airplane's on fire and you ain't got no water, but you got to put it out.
All right, I like it.
It's in case of emergency, break glass. And the glass is already broken, and somebody already took out the fire extinguisher and didn't refill it.
That's what we're describing entrepreneurship right now.
Anything that goes wrong will go wrong.
Yeah, start a business, they said.
Start a business, they said. It's
Yo, I feel a lot better now that the cameras are going. God, I could breathe, and we're doing entrepreneurship. So let's talk about it. So you're saying that, we want to stick to the podcast, and that, I do believe, and I could probably switch the camera for the people on the YouTube, but I do believe that the cooking show has a place.
Absolutely.
And just to be quite frank, I'm just not the person that needs to be up there commentating about cooking.
Well, and the cooking side of it is going to be so much fun to film because we have ideas for different shows that we want to do. We have different ideas of things that we think are entertaining and things that we're going to be trying out. But I think to try to force them all into one because we're excited and we finally have the capabilities.
Yeah.
It's a perfect example of what you deal with
in entrepreneurship is testing, being excited, testing it out and rolling it out. So let's kind of open it up because I think that this is, this is our topic, being entrepreneurship, being that, we're entrepreneurs and we have a lot to say about it. But I do believe that, there is a triangle when it comes to entrepreneurship. And that's the conversation that we want to talk about today, is that work triangle. So, brother, kind of break down the triangle for us, for the people who want to be entrepreneurs or even existing entrepreneurs that, they'll definitely relate to this topic here today.
No, I think, that's one of the most important discussions that I had as a young teenager with one of my mentors. And I truly didn't understand the scope of what they were trying to tell me at the time. But essentially, what Chef was trying to get across to me was that leadership is about being good at three things, right? The pyramid is he kind of drew it out on his notepad on the clipboard. He said it's about being great with the money, understanding the people,
okay,
and knowing your product, knowing what you're doing.
So people, money, and product.
Yeah, and I thought about that a lot over the years. It's one of those comments that have never left. And I thought about this, the greatest people you work for or work with are great at all three of those things.
Are great at people, great at money, and great at their products.
They're great at all, right? They're amazing at the money, right?
Mm-hmm.
They can manage the money.
Yeah.
They can talk to the people, whether it's the customer or it's the team member.
Mm-hmm.
Or they know everything about the product
of what they're in,
right?
Yeah.
They know what they're doing. It's their craft. That's what they believe in.
Okay.
So, great people that you work for or work with are going to be all three of those things. But the ones that are the hardest to work for are the ones that are really good at one, maybe two.
Okay.
Right? They suck at people, but they can handle the numbers.
Yeah.
They can hit that P&L, or they can cook whatever you ask them to cook, but they don't know how to talk to people.
Yeah, and I feel like that just kind of brings me to kind of dive into this a little bit deeper because it is important. Do you think that many entrepreneurs are all three? Because I think that that's where we start talking about the team aspect of it. Is that not fair to say, or what do you think about that?
I think you have to be all three, and I think you grow into all three. Right? They're all going to start out as weaknesses.
Yeah.
Right. Something's going to be a little bit more dominant than the other. So you have a dominant hand. You're gonna tend to lean towards one more where you're more comfortable.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to learn the other two, just because as an entrepreneur you don't have the option of not learning them. right?
Okay,
Your business is going to close.
This is good. And just so I could clear my head, OBS just crashed again. I'm not stressing about that. I'm just going to remake it with everything that I have. So because I think that in the last year of my journey, I've been learning to be aware of it. And I don't know if I want to be the person to specialize in it, but I have to know it to be able to check on it.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
You've got to be aware of where the money's at, right?
Yeah.
If there's no money, there's no people.
Right.
There's no product.
Right.
So like there has to be dollars there, and you have to know where nothing's free. You know, I used to think this a lot when I was a young manager, and I would go on these corporate trips, and I would go, we called them task force, where I would fly to a new hotel or a new opening or someone who needed a hand for a season, and I would help out. And you would get everything comped, right? And I thought that was the most amazing thing. Like, you just sign it to the room, and it would magically disappear, right? Comp food, comp beverages, comp dry cleaning, like everything was comped.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as comp. There's no such thing as free. There is
because
a line.
Somebody paid for it.
Somebody
That's what
paid
you're
for
saying.
it, right? Somebody still paid for the product at some point. Somebody gave time for that product. Even if it was donated, they gave time away.
Yeah.
There's something on the profit and loss statement always that is going to show you where that money went.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as free. So it's tracked. It needs to be tracked all the way through, from every dollar that comes in the door to every dollar that goes out the door.
Yeah.
And if you can't track it,
Yo, I need this conversation. This is so good. Keep going. Keep going.
if you can't track it, then how do you know what's actually going on in your business?
Right.
Right. And this is why so many people get in trouble, because they give it to someone else.
Right.
They trust someone else. It's your money. It's your business. And I mean, I've been at fault of that many times throughout our business, where I'm comfortable. I got this bookkeeper, I got this accounting firm, and that's still no reason to not pay attention, because you're going to catch things that are misclassed. You're going to catch things that should be in this box, not in that box. So you have to pay attention. I mean, when COVID happened, I didn't realize, and this is my own, ignorance towards my own business at the time.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how far in debt we were because of terms, right? Meaning, hey, you give me 15 days, you give me 30 days, and then I'll pay you.
Yeah. So like that. So when you say terms, it's basically like a promise to pay. Is that kind of what it is?
Yeah, I'm gonna give you 2 weeks to go flip that package and bring it back.
Okay.
And
so what you're saying is that when the COVID hit, it allowed you to see, like, where all your money was, because in a sense you didn't make that money back yet. You still had
it was sitting on the shelf,
especially in that time when you couldn't even use it.
I got stuck holding the bag.
Right. God, that's so crazy.
So the thing is now, when that happened, that was something that was so powerful for me, because when that pause button was pushed, the financials, I actually had to stop and look and say, oh man, we got $100,000 worth of debt sitting out there right now that we owe people money to. We got to figure this out. How do we owe $100,000? Yeah. Right. And I'm only talking 15, 30 day terms. Some restaurants, some businesses has 6-month terms. They have quarterly terms. Can you imagine having, $500,000, $1 million?
Because in 3 months you would have to pay it in that situation,
right?
Is what you're saying.
Because you're flowing on terms, so you're 2 weeks behind always. And I think that's one of the things that is always extremely important to pay attention to, is like you're not thinking about to date. You're thinking about, in 2 weeks when I make this money, I'll pay that back. And that mindset, I just did that when I started my business. I just did that because that's how everyone did.
That's a normal industry.
Yeah.
So how did you change it? Let's talk about, like, now. What would have been a shift in that specific instance?
Well, the biggest shift that I had to do was I had to get everybody squared up, right? We needed to zero out everybody. So it was about knocking out that $100,000.
Yeah.
Right. And it took a few months, but we got that money knocked out. We got everybody zeroed out. Once we were zeroed out, then it was like, we paying everybody cash right now. Yeah. Like, and then it was like, okay, well, that's a little extreme. You can't pay everybody right now. Like, I can't be there to cut a check every 5 seconds, and I want to control the checks that are going out. Right. So, now I keep my payables at about 7 days. I mean, that for me, I feel comfortable with that because I know that's how much I check my books, my check register, and I log everything. Like, I have an accountant, I have a bookkeeper. They do what they're supposed to do. They do our profit and loss statements. But still, at the end of the day, I handwrite, just for my own sanity, every single expense that we have out there, every check that's out there.
Really? That's so good.
When it clears, I mark it out. Like Tina taught me this system years ago, just for our own personal finances, and that's something I've implemented into my daily habits, because now I know what the variance is between what the bank account says is in the bank,
right,
versus what my book says, because I know how much money is sitting out there, and
so
I know how much hasn't cleared. So I think when you're talking about the finances, you have to know every single line. Like, you have to get more and more comfortable with it, even though it's not your comfort zone.
Okay. So tell me, you said you check your books every week. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, you walked in. That's what I was doing.
Yeah,
I was updating the books.
Okay.
And I sit down and I go through all the bank accounts, and I look at every transaction, and I look at every check that's been cashed, and I look at every deposit that's happened.
Yeah.
And every fee that I've been charged.
Yeah.
And I list it out. And once I list it out, then I plus and minus it all and see what's left at the end of the day.
Right.
And at that point, now I know how much I can start spending. So now I take the checks that I'm about to send out, and I log those.
Right.
So now I'm feeling more comfortable sending those checks out, because I know even if everything cleared tomorrow, this is what I got left. Right. So I'm in control. Mm-hmm. And it's an area that I've had to get control.
And are you just using Excel for this, or are you using like a software? What do you think?
No, I have a composition book and a pen.
Composition book and a pen. Let's talk about it. That hot dog.
I mean, you can make it fancy, but that's what the bookkeepers are for. Like, they're creating those reports, right? They use QuickBooks. They use all the stuff there. But for me, that's still not to date enough.
It's not on the money exactly, because you're having that what is it? It's not a delay, but a space between when
there is a gap. Yeah, there's a small gap, but a small gap can mean thousands of dollars.
Like, there's a latency between that.
Absolutely.
accurate reporting,
and that can be thousands of dollars.
Right.
So for me, that's something that, because I'll never forget, we caught up all that money and then found out that there was another $30,000 worth of checks that we didn't have.
Yeah,
that were still being held.
Okay. So I love this conversation. We're talking finances within a business and entrepreneurship. So what's something, like, when you start looking at that and you start thinking, okay, how can you make money? Like, as an entrepreneur, like, talk about that in terms of profitability, or is that the right word? But that profit and loss idea, and the ways that you can, advance yourself, and that you've found very successful through your own personal journey.
Well, the most important part is to generate revenue, right? And you have to generate as much revenue as you can. That's like the basics.
Okay.
Now, what are you sacrificing to generate that much revenue is always the question. What am I?
And talk about that in detail a little bit.
How much quality am I going to sacrifice to do more volume? Right? Because the things that
work,
the things that generate your revenue, right? The things that generate your money are going to be your customers, right? Your covers,
right?
The people that come in and pay however many sales you do,
right?
So it's the number, and then it's also the check average. At least in a restaurant, those are the two things that you're thinking about. Is how do I increase both of those numbers?
Yeah. So that's good.
When you think about that, like, if you know that your average check is, let's just say, $20, and you're gonna do 100 people during the day, well, you made $2,000.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, how do I get that to 150 people?
Right.
Now, how do I increase that check average to $22? How do I increase it to $25? Right. So now I got to start putting in a coffee program. Now I got to start creating better cocktails. Now I got to add a new drink program where you can add a shot to this dish.
Right.
So you're always thinking about those kinds of things as far as generating revenue, but then you start to think about, like, what can I do outside of just that template? And I think COVID has challenged a lot of us to think outside of that template. Like, okay, I'm going to go digital and I'm going to make money this way.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to create, cooking classes, and I'm going to sell this many cooking classes at this price. And now we're going to sell the kits. And there's so many other things that, it doesn't matter what the product is, right?
Right.
sales are sales, right? And it's the amount of volume that you do, and it's the amount that you charge for it.
100%.
So, you're always thinking about that, like how much can I make on that? So you're trying to generate as much revenue as you can, but at the same time, you have to control your expenses.
Mm-hmm.
So how much can I not spend? And without sacrificing the quality, without hurting the team, without damaging the culture, how much can you trim it before it starts to really suffer?
Yeah.
And that's especially in restaurants, man. That's why so many people have been so used and abused in this industry, is because
of that crunch.
Right? That tight trim that happens right there is like,
that's an interesting thing. I've never thought about it in that sense. That's why. I'm so close to the culinary world, but I'm not in it.
Yeah.
And I've never connected those two things, because in retail they do that too. You try to make a small team and keep the labor or whatever the hell.
One thing about how many times have you worked in a place that you don't have the equipment that you need? It's all broken.
Yeah.
Right. You could do the job much faster if the equipment worked.
Right.
Right. So it's because they don't want to pay for the repairs and maintenance.
Right. Then what makes you work harder?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
If I had a dishwasher right now, I could get the food out, but I don't have enough plates right now to actually do that. So now I gotta.
It's that balance. So triangle.
It's absolutely a balance.
Okay, let's take it back, because I'm interested in this, because I'm a small business owner, solo entrepreneur kind of a thing, and you were in that position where it was just you and T. Mm-hmm. Talk me through like the thought process and the steps to bringing on a team. Tell me like the things that you were thinking about, that you could pass along to, people like me or other people, looking to grow a team. And then we're going to dive into those dynamics.
When we were building this, it was about finally going for it.
Yeah.
And not being afraid to not do it because you might fail. Right.
That's powerful.
That was the start of it. And I think I was at a point where I had worked for enough people that I felt comfortable doing it for myself. Mm-hmm. Right. I had made enough mistakes with their money.
Right.
To hopefully not make the same mistakes with my money.
Right.
Now I'm still going to make mistakes.
Sure.
But I think it's different when it's on you.
Yep.
So, when we decided like, hey, we want to create something, it was never about like how big can we get it and it's going to look like this one day. It was a day-to-day grind, and when I look at our niece helping us out serving, the cooks who would, there would be cooks who would come hang out at the counter downstairs and they'd see me in the weeds and they would just jump on the line and help me out and bail me out. Like there was no real structured business plan to how this thing worked out. It just evolved and it kept evolving. And, I was very flexible with that evolution and adapted and rolled with it. And as we got bigger, we had to, there came realizations where it's like, hey, we need to bring this program in. Hey, we need to bring this person on. Hey, we need to add this manager in. Hey, we need this bookkeeper. Everything just kind of made sense when we did it, but it was one of those pieces where every day you're learning, you're just trying to pay attention to it, and it's really tough because there's no playbook.
There's no exact structure to how to form that master team or mastermind team.
But you have to be able to adapt and evolve as you're building your business, especially when it comes to the finances, because
that's directly correlated to finance.
Part. It truly is the most important part. There is no business without money. And
so would you say that's the bottom of the triangle?
Absolutely. I think
because that's the foundation of business.
That's the base for
sure.
And
you know what? I want to say this because there's a lot of entrepreneurs, but not many entrepreneurs are money focused and business focused the way that you are. And that's why I can't curse. It's no looks given. That's why I fuck with you so much, because don't get me wrong, there's other like chefs and things like that. I'm not trying to shit on nobody, but they're not business minded like you. And founded or having a foundation on the finances to back up the business. You know what I'm saying? So that is something that, and I admire about you, but
thank you. It's finances are an area where, I'm scared every day. Right. And the mistakes that I make, are expensive.
Right.
Right. They cost a lot. And COVID was the scare that I needed. That scared me so bad because, I mean, there was so many times where I thought we were going to lose it all. And it's forced me to change practices and philosophies and thoughts on how we deal with things and get us out of a situation. But at the same time, like, money's not my priority. Right. It's a big part of our business, but it's not what makes me happy.
Yeah.
Right. I come from no money.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know money.
Right.
Like, I got friends who are wealthy. Like, I don't know that life.
I don't know.
I've never known that life, but I'm very blessed.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm good, but it's not my priority. Like, the money came so much further down the road. I didn't get into cooking or into the restaurant business to make money.
Sure.
Like, I got into it because I love the food. I love the people. I love the atmosphere. I love the culture. I love what we support. I loved everything about it. Like, that's why I got into cooking. Mm-hmm. And it was never to chase a dollar. Like, I mean, I remember starting in this business making, $6 an hour. Yeah. Like,
but there is some aspect, of it. Like, people can be a courageous entrepreneur, but then there's a difference between being a successful one. So although you're not about the money, you have a foundation of money principles that have to be successful to keep running multiple businesses. So go ahead.
Here's the realest thing that happened to me and Tina. Tina and I were in New York, and we were filming an episode of Chopped with Robert Irvine. Mm-hmm. And Robert Irvine came and sat down with us. He came and sat down with us at lunch, and he was like, "Hey, tell me about your business." Now, this is celebrity chef. This dude's been on Food Network for years. I like the man. I think he's amazing on what he does on, like, Restaurant Impossible and Dinner Impossible, all those shows that he did. I always enjoyed watching him. And when he sat down and he actually wanted to know about our business, Tina and I talked to him. And the best thing and the best piece of advice he gave me, he goes, after all that, he goes, "What are you paying yourself?" I was like, "Well, I haven't paid myself in 3 years."
Yeah.
3-4 years. He goes, "That's an expense that exists that you're ignoring."
Yeah.
You need to pay yourself, because when you grow into your next position, you're going to have to pay somebody to do what you're doing in the business.
Right.
So you need to start paying yourself, because that's an expense. Mm-hmm. Right? You're the person that is in there every single day. You're the person that's making the thing happen. Why would you not pay yourself?
Yeah.
Right? Pay yourself first.
Okay, that's a good question. I love this, because a lot of people, they either do one of the two. Either pay themselves way too much or don't pay themselves at all. Mm-hmm. So tell me, what is something that you've learned, or how do you manage it now?
So my biggest mistake was it wasn't that I wasn't willing to pay myself. I had sold myself a lie that I was reinvesting it into the business. Right? I was building the business. I was growing the business.
That's not the lane. That's not the correct moment.
You need to pay yourself that expense, because that is part of the labor.
Yes.
Right? You can't ignore, there's no free.
Okay.
You can't ignore that
somebody
is working the hours.
Me.
So somebody's working those hours, even if it's you.
Yeah.
Right now, you're a line body, but eventually you'll be an ownership or distribution person.
Right.
So, you have to kind of realize that first part is that you have to pay yourself. So him telling us that, I mean, I put myself on payroll the next day, and I haven't stopped paying myself. Even if it's a little bit, it doesn't have to be a lot, but I still make sure that I cut myself a paycheck. I still cut myself a paycheck.
Yeah.
For the time that I put in the restaurants. And, some of the restaurants I don't work in, like, as a line employee, so I don't pay myself for those restaurants, but some of them I do.
Right.
And you need to make sure that you're paying for those hours, because that's a real expense. It was a valuable lesson.
No, that's really good. And, like I said, I take a lot of value out of this conversation. So let's kind of move on with the triangle, because, finances is the foundation, but there's other elements, whether it is like sales or the products. Speak on that, and there is something else I want to talk about, just because I had the conversation earlier. It's the team aspect. Mm-hmm. Like, there's something there with the team.
It's the people.
It's the people that make it happen.
It's
but
the culture.
Okay, yeah. I like that. But go ahead. Let's dive into these couple topics.
The product's the easiest one, right? The product's the easiest thing to be passionate about, right? That's the one thing we all love, whatever we're selling.
Whatever we're selling.
Right? Most of the time, hopefully.
And you know what? This is good for me because I feel like I almost need to fall back in love with this, like what the product, like what I'm selling.
And you have to simplify it, right? I always talk about the day I remember falling back in love with food. Right. I had aspirations and goals to be a general manager of a hotel. That was my goals in my 20s.
Yeah.
And when I moved to Chicago and I had this really cool position where I had freedom to work with people from the farms, and they were like showing up in the kitchen, and I'll never forget this day. Like this farmer showed up in my kitchen in Chicago, downtown Chicago. He walks in my kitchen and he's got this this like plastic bag full of like muddy water and greens. And I was like, what's that? And he's like, oh man, I found some watercress down by my creek. You want some? And he sold me like watercress straight from his creek. And I was like, wow.
Product.
And it was the most amazing watercress I had ever tasted.
Yeah.
And the story and the connection, everything made total sense. And I was like, you know what? I want to do food. I don't want to be a GM. I don't have it in me to be a suit. I need to be a GM. Or I don't want to be a GM. I want to be a chef. I'm a chef.
Yeah.
I've been training my whole life for this. I'm a chef. And that was the moment where like everything changed for me. Like I went to Texas after that and eventually went on to start my own restaurant.
Yeah.
But it was that moment of that relationship with the farmer and understanding the product and the connection to the soil that
because it was in him. Is that kind of what it is?
Yeah.
Like he loved his
pure
product.
It was pure.
God, that's a good key. That's a good takeaway.
And it simplified everything for me. Like it's always, I know my strength is the food.
Yeah.
Right. I'm good at the other things. I'm good at the people. I'm good at the dollars. But for me, it's the food. Yeah. I love the product. I love the food. I love the beverage. But it's like I'm not great at wine, right? But I surround myself with people who are, like Steve Kander.
Yeah.
Phenomenal at wine. This man knows everything about wine. You know, I'm not the greatest at cocktails, but I keep people around me that know their cocktails.
Yeah.
You know, and I ask questions. I can make a decent cocktail now because I pay attention. I learn to them. But for me, it's about the food, right? Because that's constant education. You can never stop learning when it comes to your product.
Yeah.
There's always something to learn because
I'm glad
it's
that
always
you said
advancing.
that because it's not just like about your craft, your food. That's your particular vehicle.
Yes.
But it's applicable to everybody. So whatever their product is, to continue to learn it, continue to fall into that.
Yeah.
You know,
you're responsible for your own education. Period.
Yeah.
It's not your mentor's responsibility. Yeah. It's not your teacher's responsibility. It's your responsibility. If you are interested in something, you're going to learn about it.
Yeah.
And you're going to put in the work to learn more about it. And then you're going to put in the reps to get good at it. Right?
That's important.
You have to put in the reps. I had specialist medicine asking me the other day, he's like, what'd you do to get your knife skills so tight? I said, I chopped.
Medicine, you are hilarious,
you know,
dog.
I mean, but I put in the reps. You know, my knife skills are my knife skills because I've put my knife skills to work.
Yeah.
You know, but I understand my tool. I understand how to maintain my tool. I understand how to keep those things moving, and I understand what it's supposed to do with my hand. And I've done the reps just like a athlete understands a ball. Right. They've shot that ball hundreds of thousands of times over and over and over to ensure that they are
comfortable 100%.
Yeah, they did the
reps. They have the feel. They got the reps. God, that's such a good study analogy. The tape. They study the tape.
Right?
Yep.
So you're constantly a student. And I think that's one of the most important parts.
Needed this podcast.
You have to fall in love with your product. Right?
Yeah.
In your craft. Whatever your product is, there's a craft behind it. You got to understand how it was made, who made it.
Right.
You know, why is it beautiful?
Right.
Why do you want it? What cultures does it affect? Where does it come from?
Right.
You know, how's it different in another part of the world? I think that when I think about food and I'm like, oh, but when I go to Italy, you know, the food is completely different. They don't think about the same way we think about it here in the States. They don't think about the same way they think about it in Asia. It's so majestic to constantly be learning and know that you can. If there's, I think the best way I heard it, you know, how do you tell me you know everything about food when there's thousands of varieties of just citrus.
Wow.
So how do you even begin to tell me you know anything about an orange?
Right.
If there's thousands of types of citrus.
Right. Man, it just comes to my mind because I just saw it recently, and I'm kind of iffy on the idea, but I understand the philosophy, which is basically he was saying that if you wanted to be a pro in something, go away for 10 years, learn it, and come back.
Yeah, you have to study, right? You have to be great at your craft and be the best at it. Be you, right?
Yeah,
be authentic.
That's what I like. That's what I have to oppose everything. I always say, like, if 10 years in, I could be learning on the go. You know what I'm saying? So it'd be a different journey for everybody. It's not a perfect match, and I think that that's the important thing about like entrepreneurship is there's not a definitive structure. There's a triangle that you work within, but you think outside the box and kind of push through the threshold of whatever industry that you're in.
Yeah. But you also got to trust yourself, right? You have to know when to say no.
I like that.
That's a hard one. I want to say yes to everything, but
say no.
I know I'm gonna drown myself. And it's something so scary and so real, but you have to trust yourself.
Yeah.
To know when you're overextending.
Yep.
And when you're ready and when you're not ready. You'll know.
Yeah.
And when you don't, pray about it.
Hey, it's really good advice, but just on the topic, let's keep going because product is a very important piece. And I think that just talking about it just gets me excited about sales because you're selling the product. So then let's talk about sales or people.
Yep. So the people is the culture, right? It's how the team members feel. It's how you treat the team members. It's how the guest feels.
Yeah.
How you treat the guest.
Yeah.
And that is what leads into leadership. That's what goes into motivation. That's what goes into inspiration.
Yeah.
That's what goes into discipline, accountability.
Yeah, rules, regulations.
All those things. You have to be good at the people side, right? You have to be approachable. You have to be personable.
Yeah.
You have to know people as individuals. And then you got to find ways to motivate them to get them to produce.
Yeah.
And the only way to do that is to actually get to know them and talk to them, right? You can't just have one technique that works on everybody. It's just not.
People are different, so it takes different approaches.
Nope.
I feel like that is critical. So I'm just gonna say this and let you keep going, because there was a part of like they're saying, that you're at the work way more than you're at your home. So it's like your second family. So it's just about making it feel like a family instead of forcing it to feel like a family. Talk about that dynamic and how do you achieve that?
Now, culture has been probably the hardest thing that I've learned as a business owner. I was very fortunate to work for companies that had great culture. And it wasn't even companies that had great culture. It was the locations in those organizations that had great culture.
A home within a home.
I worked for great properties. Right. I think about certain times in my career, certain properties I worked for where it was just magical.
All right. So tell me this. This is good because from that property versus another one, what were the key differences?
Leadership.
Right? Talk
leaders.
about it.
It was the leaders.
Yeah.
And it started from the top down. And the leaders gave great information when it came to the numbers, right? Here's the expectation. Here's where we're at. Here's what I hope we're going to do. Here's what you're doing. Right. That communication was clear. It was black and white. There was no questioning. Like it was set in stone. So it made things easier to be able to perform.
Yeah.
The passion, everyone was really good at what they did. So when you get on a team like that and you're just able to contribute what you're good at, you're not trying to juggle everyone else's plate.
Right.
You're just focused on your plate.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's like one of the greatest feelings. Like, Katsuji and I were cooking in Montana and we had a phenomenal planner. She was so good at what she did.
Yeah.
And she was juggling so many hats over the course of this weekend for this client. It was so nice for the first time in, I don't know, the last 8-9 years since I've been on my own, that I was able to just be a chef.
Play your part.
and just play my position. And I played the hell out of my position.
Right.
It was nice.
And that freedom allowed you to be better at what you're doing.
Oh man, it was so, and you know, it was a reinforcement for me that, you know, you have to create that within your own businesses.
Yeah.
Right. You need to allow your managers to be great at what they do so they can allow their team members to be great at what they do.
Right.
And you have to put them in the, Tina said this one time, that person's not on the wrong bus. They're just in the wrong seat.
T, where you getting this knowledge from?
And I love that.
It's a great idea, though.
Yeah, because we hire great personalities.
Yeah.
Right? We hire great people. That's the starting point.
Yeah.
And when we talk about culture, when we talk about people, we talk about that side of the pyramid. It starts with hiring.
Yeah.
Interview hard. Find good people.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be, you know, a general question. Like, I love, there's a chef who used to finish his interviews by saying, hey, go clean up that corner of the kitchen. Here's a mop.
To see
how you would respond, just to see how you would clean,
how your attitude is. That tells a lot.
It tells a lot.
Yeah.
You know, that little 5-minute cleanup job.
Damn. Yeah.
Spoke volumes.
Right.
And I think.
Did you want the job?
Did you want the job? Right? Yeah. Could you humble yourself to actually do that?
Right.
And I think that was a important lesson for me. Is like, you have to hire hard. The greatest mistakes I've made have been Band-Aids in hiring. Right. I'm hurting for that position.
Yeah.
I need to fill it.
Yeah.
And you make a quick decision, and you know what? That one's going to hurt later.
Yes,
it's going to cost you a lot more.
It affects the culture, you know, bad apple in the group or whatever.
Oh, it's gonna do more damage.
Yo, do you remember what I know you go through a lot, but when Madison had his dinner here, one of the, you know, higher ups stood up and he talked about that. He talked about the leadership. There's the important factor about leadership. And this went against what a lot of people say, but he said you don't have to lead from the front. You don't have to lead from the back. He said that you just have to play your part as a leader.
Yeah.
That shit stuck with me.
Yeah.
Like, that's powerful. And I think that's what you're talking about is what Katsuji.
You have to be present.
Yeah. Or that moment with Katsuji with that whole dynamic that you were allowed to just play your part. And there's something special in that.
But I think the most important part when it comes to the people is protecting the people. Right.
Talking about protecting the people. What do you mean by that?
It's so hard because the bigger your company grows, the more personalities you begin to mix. And,
right.
And we have this unique time of so many people in the workplace, so many different generations in the workplace, right? Millennials and Gen X and Gen Z and baby boomers, they're all working together.
Yeah.
And those are all completely different generations.
Yeah.
Right. Some went through war.
That's interesting. I've never really thought about it like that.
Some went through war. Some have been very sheltered.
Right.
Right. They're just different generational gaps, and they're all working right now.
Right.
So how do you manage all of those personalities? Because some are more hardened, some are not.
Right. Right.
But then at the same time, you have to ensure that like rules are followed. Right. You set standards, very clear expectations, and you know you're constantly ensuring that those are enforced. And, you know, you might feel one way about your business, but is it actually happening in the business? I mean, I've had reality checks where I've had to like go back and actually have conversations that were uncomfortable and not fun and separate ties with people because, you know, it wasn't with the culture that we believed in. It wasn't what we needed. And it was better for the team to make that separation than, you know, to keep it.
Right.
And that's always a tough decision because you have to protect the people.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm really, COVID was one of the hardest parts during that because you lost touch with a lot of people. Right.
God, talk about that. Yeah. That's
I mean, this
important.
last year, like everybody was locked in their house.
Going through their own thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, you didn't have that one-on-one with them. How you doing?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah.
How's your family today?
Right.
You didn't have any of that. So like people held stuff in for this last year. And then, you know, I think a few months ago, a lot of it came out, especially because we were getting back to work and it got busy and people weren't ready for that volume to come back the way it did. And you saw a lot of leaders struggling with that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how to handle this. I mean, I've been sheltered my whole last year.
Right.
You know, like what do I do?
Right.
And that was a hard thing in this last year to kind of protect is like, hey, we've got to fix this. We've got to address it. I mean, we literally did one-on-one conversations with every single employee by Zoom. And they were like 15-minute conversations.
Yeah.
But it was a starting point.
To touch base again. Yeah. Get reconnected.
And I learned so much about my own business by doing that and just, being present. And it forced me to make the next steps, which was get in the business and really make the impact and make the change. And we're seeing such a difference. Here we are a few months later, but we're seeing such a difference, which is crazy because, we did the work, and it wasn't just a Band-Aid.
Right.
We performed surgery.
Right.
But we got in there and we realized, like, hey, we're coming out of this pandemic, and we need to be ready, and our teams need to be ready, but they need to feel supported.
Yeah. So explain, how do you do that?
I think the first thing is ensuring that my uncle told me this years ago, he was always a top tier manager in his company. And I would always talk to him about business, especially as I was a young manager. And he told me before he gives up on any employee, he asks himself 3 questions. Did I provide that person the tools, the training, and the support that they needed to be successful?
So it comes back to you.
He says, and if I can't answer all 3 of those things,
then you failed.
Then I'm failing that person.
That person versus that person failing you.
I can't accept that resignation. I can't give that termination.
Right.
It's on me right now. Right. So I have to make sure when it comes to our day-to-day, are we doing all 3 things? Are we providing the tools to be successul? Do they have the equipment they need?
Right.
Do they have the saute pans and the ovens fixed?
Right.
Does the fridge work? Like all those basics.
Right.
Is the sink dripping? Like, we'll just get the plumber in.
Right.
Right. So are the tools there? Is the training there?
Right.
Are we in there? Are we giving the education? Are we giving the systems to be successful as far as, like, here's our expectation, but here's the education.
Right.
And then the third part, the third part is the support. Were you there?
Yeah.
Could they lean on you?
Right.
You have to ask yourself those things.
No, that's huge, because that plays a big part in not only leadership but the culture. But that's how you create a family within a team. And I think it does go back to some of those leadership skills that transfer over from personal to business, that a lot of successful entrepreneurs thrive in, because they did have great leadership. And we were talking to Luchelle and her husband TJ. And that's one thing that I pulled from them, is like they pull their military, background in terms of like discipline and leadership, and transfer it right over to, their own business. So the only reason I say that is because, that creates the culture, starting from the top is the leadership.
Yeah.
So let's kind of bring this in full circle. Okay. So we have the people. All right. So what tips do you have, for small business owners in regards to, being there for their people, whether it is support, training, or if they have the tools to, so what kind of tips would you give somebody?
I think the most important part is you got to keep a very good checklist that is constantly growing in front of you on a day-to-day.
Checklist.
Right. So what's your to-do?
Yeah.
What's your to-do? What's now? What's the priority?
Yep.
What can wait?
Okay.
And what can wait till tomorrow?
All right, I like
so
this.
So you're kind of prioritizing your list, but that list never ends. So
okay.
you have to be okay with never being able to clear that list. It's an ongoing list, right? Because things are going to come up all day long.
That's a message that I think transfers deeper than just a list.
Absolutely.
Wow, that was powerful. Like, just understanding that you may not ever get through that list, but continuously pursuing that list and staying within that checklist.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep that forever. I like that.
It's I mean, I can't tell you how many times I literally, I'll fill up a whole page of a to-do.
Right.
And then I'll clear it and I'll rewrite it. But, like, don't get caught up in rewriting lists. Like, you
Sure.
could have got 4 things done while you were rewriting the list. So you have to prioritize that list and figure out, like, okay, well, I got to get the accounting done. Right. That's a priority today.
Right.
I got till Thursday to do it.
Yep.
but I'm gonna get it done on Wednesday. That gives me a day in case something happens and I can't do it on Wednesday. I can knock it out by Thursday. So you have to set yourself up for success. The other thing is manage your time effectively, right? Use a calendar.
Yeah.
A calendar
get on that calendar
is the
shit.
greatest thing. Like, I mean, when you go in your calendar, you should plug all your appointments into and I mean, not just like your stuff for work, but also your life stuff.
Yeah, just little things like, you know, running an errand, you know, it takes time.
Think about this, right? Work out,
Right.
do laundry,
Right.
have a date.
Yeah.
Like all that basic stuff, because you have to think about it. Like we are trained from kindergarten, from preschool,
Right.
all the way through college. We are trained to follow a schedule,
Operate on a schedule.
right?
Yeah.
The bell rings at 7:10,
Right. And
First
we know it
period
takes
ends at
7 minutes
9:05.
to get across.
right? You are on a schedule your entire life.
Yeah.
And then once you get out of college, you just stop.
Yeah.
Keep your schedule, manage your schedule, and your calendar on your phone is the greatest tool.
Yeah.
I mean, you just plug in the appointment, you set the time, you know where you need to be all day.
Right.
So you're not wasting a lot of the time. I think the third part is avoid the distractions. Right?
Talk about it. Yeah. What do you mean?
Think about how much time we spend on things like social media
Yeah.
or Netflix, man. Take those things off of your phone,
Yeah.
right? Or tuck them away in the not on the home screen.
Yeah.
Turn off the notifications so it's not constantly in your face saying,
Right.
look at me, look at me,
Right.
look at me.
Right.
So you got to clear me. You know, move that piece to the side so you can put it in your calendar to say at 9 o'clock, I'm going to do my social media.
Right.
So you're only spending that 30 minutes on it.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, you know, I'm going to check it all day and I'm working.
Yeah.
I've told myself that lie for sure. I'm like, oh yeah, I got Instagram because I'm working.
Yeah.
Well,
there is a couple perspectives, because there are some times, and this is not an excuse to dive into social media by no means, but there are some times like where I scroll and maybe it's for an hour, but I'm watching and I'm trying to learn, like, what are they doing? What is working? Like, what can I pull from this? What type of video?
You know what they're doing?
What?
They're not looking at their phone.
Oh yeah. They just posting and creating shit. You know what I'm saying? So I just say that to say this, you know, that there are some positive benefits
Absolutely.
of those, of course. But what you're saying is cut the distractions so you can get to the things that are important.
You got to stay to your list.
Okay.
Is what I'm getting at. You have to stay true to your
Yeah,
list. And there's a lot of things that want to pull you away from that list.
Right.
From getting things done. And it should be your personal and your professional life. I think that applies to both.
Yeah.
But you know, you have to stay on top of that, because you can find inspiration from so many areas all day long.
Yeah.
You can get lost in inspiration.
Yes. Hey, that's cool. That's the flip side. What the fuck I just said.
Yeah. I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I look at every art as inspiration, and like, how did they do that? Why did they do that?
Right.
How can I?
Why
apply
did
that
it
to
connect to the client? That's what I always think about. Why did that work? It's always an emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that's your passion, right?
Yeah.
That's your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Where you don't want to focus on the money, you don't want to focus on the people, you want to go back to your product, because that's where you know it excites you, right?
God, that's a good full circle.
Yeah.
That's a very good, very, very good, and that might be why, you know, I love the beginning of this, you know, podcast, even like the middle of it, was because these are all things that, you know, I need to hear, and I need to be around these conversations, and, you know, I need to revisit some of these ideas, you know what I'm saying? Because I am building out, you know, the products and sales and all that stuff, and, you know, but the finances, you know, being the foundation, fundamental part being the foundation is intriguing to me, because, you know, when you said go get the money, you know, you can't operate without money. And I'm over here thinking, like, how can I bring over an assistant? How can I hire, you know, an editor? I can't do that stuff without money. So that's actually a really good key. But you're right. It's distracting. It's me funneling into what I gravitate on the triangle. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and here's the thing. I fall victim to that too.
Yeah.
Like, I get lost in the food. I get lost in the cooking. I get lost in this world.
Because I do video. I get it.
Right.
Oh my God.
And
that's nuts.
And for me, you know, I have to stop and have to pay attention, like,
to my business,
like,
my triangle.
Tomorrow we're gonna write a new menu, but
Right.
then after that, I know I need to write the rest of the forecast for the rest of the year as far as financials. How much money are we gonna make?
Yeah.
At each restaurant, and how much money are we allowed to spend?
Right.
Right. Because COVID's messed everything up, so now we need to rewrite budgets.
Right.
that are they don't exist anymore because they don't make any sense. So now we need to stop. We need to look at the remainder of the year. It's May.
Yeah.
What's the next 6 months look like? So we need to actually write that out because we need goals to achieve financially.
Right.
And I know that's an area I don't want to focus on because it's not my passion, but it needs to be done because it's going to give very black and white expectations to my staff.
Set goals.
My leaders can perform to it.
Right.
So
without that, you have no measurement or even a goal for that matter.
Yeah.
You can't even have a stretch goal because you don't know where you're pushing. This is good. This is a gold, one of them golden podcasts. So like, the nuggets you drop is just priceless. Like for real, and I know I'm not the only person that's gonna feel the value. Out of this.
And I think that needs to be the goal of the whole point of this No Luck's Given podcast is we're talking two entrepreneurs talking business, right?
Yeah.
And we're talking practices and we're talking everything that we do within our businesses.
Yeah.
And sharing that because
we're
learning every day, but at the same time, like we've grown from nothing to something.
Yeah.
And we're on our way.
That's our next podcast. We got to talk about our journey because I don't think we've really dove into that. You know what I'm saying? And it'd be intriguing to talk about because, we are small business entrepreneurs but we've been connected for a while, and this is the reason. I said it in the first episode, which I think was like number 5. This is the reason why I wanted to start a podcast with you. It's because you drop gems on me sometimes I'm not ready for. And then later in life, like right now, like I'm ready for some of these gems that you done dropped on me a couple years ago. You know what I'm saying? So, this is the meat and potatoes of damn No Luck's Given.
Yeah, and that's what this should be. I was talking with the plumber earlier who was here, and I've known him for, I don't know, 8 years now.
Right.
And I said, you know what, man, I'm so proud you started your business.
Really?
He told, because he started his business a couple months ago, back in January, I think.
Yeah.
And, I use him for everything. He used to work for another company, and now he's on his own, so I'm supporting him.
Yeah.
And he told me when we were standing in the doorway, he was like, man, he goes, you're a big inspiration. He goes, I've watched how hard you've worked. I've watched what you've built.
Yeah.
He goes, and I'm inspired.
Yeah.
He's like, so, I seen you do it. I know I can do it.
Right.
And that was powerful, man.
That's what it's about, man. I just got damn chills. I got chills. That's what it's about,
He's going to have a huge business.
Right.
He is a hard worker. He knows every bit of his business.
Yeah. He knows his product.
Yeah. Can you get the financials in place? Can you get the culture and the people in place?
Right.
And if you can, then you can grow something. And because that's going to fester, and they're going to want to be a part of it, and they're going to want to grow it.
Right.
And then they become empowered in it, and that's how every corporation started as independent.
Right.
Somebody had an idea.
Right.
Somebody jumped off a cliff.
Right.
So, I when I think about those major corporations, like, it's not out the question.
Yeah. It's in the same ballpark. Like you can fathom it where it's not like out of, foreign, if you will.
But my biggest thing is I don't want to grow it too fast to where I'm not prepared.
Yeah. To where you lose the balance.
I need a good foundation.
Okay.
And a business shouldn't crumble every time you walk away from it. I mean, you didn't build anything.
Hot dog.
You can't build stuff on sand.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
And you need concrete, you need foundation.
Right.
And a business is exactly that. So for me right now, my biggest priority with both of our restaurants, with the studio, with everything we're getting ready to launch online is like, let's build foundation.
Right.
It's got to make sense. It's got to have legs.
Right.
It's got to have concrete. And if it doesn't, then it's not going to work. So, I've walked away from other businesses that I've had that, I take a day off and they fall apart.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm rebuilding everything. Then I take a week off, I come back, starting over.
Right. And that would show you that in that triangle, something isn't working.
You don't have a foundation.
Right.
You need to work on the foundation, which is those 3 things.
Yeah.
It's the people, it's the money,
product, and the money.
And it's the product. It's your passion, whatever your craft is.
Yeah.
So, I think that's what it always comes back down to.
Man, I'm just gonna say this because you hit on something about I don't know the young gentleman's name, the plumber. What's his name? Ryan. So when you were speaking to Ryan, I'm just going to say this because that is an example of only one person that you've inspired. You know, me being another, but there's plenty of stories that not only he's inspiring in real time, but I believe this podcast will do it as well. So that, just to wrap it up, man, no luck's given is pride, courage, determination, and perseverance.
Absolutely.
You know, and those are all, characteristics that really Lucy at this time, really Lucy.
She was good the whole time.
God, the whole time. And now y'all this is a good throwback clip to really Lucy. But nah, man, this is good. So I always like to give our listeners, something to take away, something, to apply, whether it is an actionable, step or just, advice, whatever it may look like. What do you give somebody in terms of working on this triangle? Because there's three components for me. I'm a product person, probably more sales. I'm definitely lacking in finance. But so what would you say to somebody like me or even other people who are working on that triangle? How would you help them?
I think the most important part is find good mentors and ask a lot of questions.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid to ask questions. Before I started any of my restaurants, there was 3 restaurant owners that I reached out to who were all successful.
Yeah.
Who, 2 of them are retired now. Retired.
Wow. Yeah.
Right? And I sat down with them and I just ran through my game plan and I was like, here's what I'm thinking. And they gave me knowledge.
Yeah.
One of them said, unless your restaurant does more than $1 million in sales, you won't be able to afford any salary staff.
Wow. Okay.
He goes, I wouldn't do this concept. I don't think it makes any sense.
Mm.
And I still did it, and he was absolutely right.
Right.
I couldn't afford any salary managers. I was the glue that held it together for all 3 of those years.
Right.
And it was hard, and it was rough, and my mental game was way off. But, his experience is something I should have listened to.
Mentors is key. Mentors is key. I like that. All right, and then I'm just going to go ahead and tell y'all my advice of this week, which is jump. Y'all got to jump, man. Brother always says it best. Jump off the cliff and build the airplane on the way down. Yeah. And that's my tip of the week, because there's a lot of things that are always gonna give you fear or reasons to not jump. And I'm just gonna say just jump, and you'll figure it out. You'll figure it out that you gotta learn the products, gotta learn the sales, gotta learn the finance.
You gotta learn it all.
But you got to do it. And
you're going to learn it on the way down.
Right. And I think that's what I'm so inspired by, in this conversation is you're a prime example of learning on the way down.
Yeah.
You didn't have a goddamn, 747 ready.
Mm-mm.
You know what I'm saying?
I didn't have a parachute. But you know what the scariest part is leaning over and looking.
Yeah, because
that's the scariest part.
Yeah.
Right? Because then once you jump, like the knots and the butterflies that are in your stomach from looking.
Right.
And the part that you experience as falling.
Right.
That doesn't go away.
Right.
Those knots are going to stay there the entire fall.
Whole way down.
So you just learn to embrace those knots.
And find the beauty in it.
That list is never going to stop.
Never going to stop.
Embrace that fear.
That's powerful, brother.
I'm scared every day.
That's very powerful.
But I'll just start over and do it again.
Yeah. Jump out that plane, man. All right, y'all. I love y'all. No luck's given. Brother Luck, Dana Keith. You can follow him on Chef Brother Luck, all platforms.
Yeah, all platforms at Chef Brother Luck, chefbrotherluck.com. Make sure to check out 4 by Brother Luck and Lucky Dumpling here in Colorado Springs.
Hey.
And, of course, subscribe to us on this YouTube.
Yeah, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're on Apple, Spotify, so you can listen to it for all the audio fans. There are some people that don't like video. So we're here for you guys through the audio. This has been a good podcast. This is one I'm going to remember for a long time.
And, this is good because we're back to the basics. We're back to the basics of having a good discussion.
Yeah, that's
and believing.
I got lost. This is no homo. I got lost because, in real conversation, just looking at your eyes, I wasn't, obviously OBS crashed. I wasn't all over in this one, and I felt like I needed that.
Well, here's the thing. Like, the podcast doesn't have to be live. Right?
Yeah.
We can record
I can record it. I put it together.
We can have these done, and then we can release them. It's just audio.
Right.
The video stuff that we're working on that we keep having issues with, we'll figure that out, but it's gonna make sense for what it's meant for, which is the cooking seg. All that stuff's gonna have to be edited anyway.
Right.
So,
yeah, because the Illumin's has the software.
But it
anyways.
takes away from great conversations.
It does. It does. That multitask. There's like a time where like I'm not paying attention. And it hurts my conversation because I'm not really listening to you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And that's the toughest part. But the other side of it too is like, we have great things to offer.
Right.
In our conversations that other people could benefit from. So
100%.
Sharing our stories is extremely important. God,
and
so we powerful. Downplay that, right?
We do.
I downplay that tremendously.
I could cry right now because you're right. You're right.
Like, no, we need a guest. We need this person. We need that person.
Which is great. Like there are variables that are great about it. But we don't need per se, because keep it real with you, like my favorite episodes are this, like where I'm able to like really be interested in what the hell we're talking about. Yeah. And that's what I like.
Well, I'm excited. I think next week we'll definitely dive into our stories. I think that's a big piece because it's the journey that got us to where we are right now.
100%. And then I think that'll give more perspective to as we grow, like how we were able to do that because we have all this years of footage, you know what I'm saying, which is incredible. Man, this has been a good one once again. My name is Dana Keith. You can find me on Instagram, official Dana Keith everywhere else. Man, I'm humbled and I'm thankful for the time, man. This was a good one for sure. All right, y'all. Brother Luck, Dana Keith, no luck's given. We'll see y'all next week. Peace.
Peace.
The man behind the hustle and grind. This is pride, courage, determination, and perseverance. Welcome to No Luck's Given.